colleges, they are businesses. You know, they are for-profit businesses making money. That's their main goal. So like, for instance, even if you don't meet the GPA requirements, you could have a very rich father who makes a quote-unquote donation to the college, and then you would get accepted. So obviously, there are many things that cannot be taught in college, or many things that do not need a college degree that people can do. AiA episode 39, Is College Necessary? Pro versus Anti-College. This is another episode of Jubilee's Middle Ground. Obviously, the original video will be linked down below in the description, but obviously I'm a big fan of Jubilee's Middle Ground. I do react to a lot of their videos and obviously want to give them the credit they deserve. And I'll also probably cut out some sections of this video because I'm not trying to react to the whole video on my show anymore. At least I'm trying to with the majority of videos. But anyways, I think I have some sort of, I guess, qualification to add to this conversation of pro versus anti-college. So basically, from what I can say is that I have 3 college degrees. I have an associate's degree in computer networking. I have a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and information assurance. And then I have an MBA in information technology management. So having 3 degrees, I think that I would have some sort of opinion on this. But anyways, let's get into the video and see the opinions.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. My parents expected me to go to college.
Okay, obviously I pause and give my thoughts on each prompt. So my parents expected me to go to college. For me, I would say yes, at least for my entire family. If we were looking at each individual, it wasn't really an expectation in my family. I come from a very working class, poor family, but for me, my family saw a lot of talent. They saw that I was gifted. They saw that I was too smart not to go to college. I think that is a big misunderstanding too from a lot of people. They think smartness means that you need to go to college, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think just smart people go to college, but a lot of people in my family seem to believe that. But yeah, my parents definitely expected me to go to college.
Even though my dad didn't go to college himself, he, went through a little bit of an associate's degree, but his main thing was a photographer. And then my mom, being from Jamaica, completely different, education being her way of getting out of that kind of environment, poverty, things like that. She always wanted me to go to school, and they both put me through private school to better prepare me for college. So they kind of started me off on the path as soon as they could.
Growing up, I actually didn't even realize there was an option to not attend college. I thought that part was mandatory, but you may or may not graduate. It was very important to my grandmother as well, being a college professor. And when she and my grandfather graduated from college and earned their master's degrees, they were literally able to take that to the bank as a down payment on a home. At the time, a college degree meant guaranteed income.
My dad was always the type of person to say, get your degree, I don't care what it's in. So I always felt a little bit of flexibility about what specifically I wanted to do. And that's why I kind of took community college as a time to try a lot of different things and see what I'm interested in and not break the bank. My name is Pam and I'm pro-college. The main thing that I feel like I missed out on by going to community college first was that I wasn't given the opportunity to pursue leadership roles in clubs or things that I was a part of. There is a bit of a stigma with transfer students that you're not, you weren't there on campus long enough. I encountered a lot of people who would discuss feeling imposter syndrome or feeling like they weren't good enough to be at a school like UCLA, that they couldn't do as well as the people who had been there all 4 years. And I definitely felt that feeling sometimes as well.
Can the disagreeers step forward?
There was no expectation for me to go to college whatsoever. So it was really my personal decision to go. I saw a lot of poverty like in my community, in my neighborhood. And so how do I avoid this situation as an adult? There was no plan B for me. So it was like, you know, if I don't do it, I'm going back to my hometown and I'll be working at a factory somewhere, or I can do it and, you know, see what happens.
College's use of affirmative action is problematic.
This is a controversial topic, but I'll definitely add my 2 cents into it. So when we talk about affirmative action, it's basically just giving people opportunities that historically have not been given opportunities. Obviously, that's like what its goal was to be set out for. And, you know, obviously, hopefully, you know, be positive in that way. But for me, as someone who did grow up poor, and did grow up with not a lot of opportunities, affirmative action ultimately really hurt me. So for instance, I tried to go to college for engineering. And when trying to go to college for engineering, I had to take a lot of these engineering classes during high school. So I had to basically start my engineering program as a freshman in high school, and I had to take these engineer classes for 4 years straight. And it was only then, if I was to get accepted into the university, for engineering, and they would only accept like maybe 6 or 7 people out of the entire like 30 or so people in my class, but they would pick like 6 or 7 people out of each individual class because there's multiple classes, obviously. And I did not get a scholarship for engineering, even though I was one of the top people in the class, and it was pretty disappointing for me. It's ultimately why I almost didn't go to college, because I was just so pissed at the time. But basically, affirmative action hurt me in such a way is that there was only 3 women in my entire class out of like 30-something students, and all 3 of them got engineering scholarships. And I was above them all, like in the class. Like they were definitely not top of the class, nowhere near that. Their grades didn't reflect that. Their overall ambition, I don't think, reflected that. But for someone like me who scored like A+ on every single exam, I thought like, oh, I should get this scholarship, and I didn't. So affirmative action really hurt me in that way, but I know why they were given the scholarship, because historically women aren't in engineering. So it really just hurt me in that way, because I was like, damn, you know, I really don't know what to do, because even though like I get why they got that opportunity, I think I was more deserving of it. So it's a really difficult thing to kind of like reconcile with. And even like over 4 years later, I'm still sort of thinking about that, you know, to this day. But anyways, let's see what they say.
Okay. So my personal experience with affirmative action, when I went to the PWI, I was chosen pretty much based on affirmative action. There was a lot of heavy marketing, hey, come to our school, come to our school. Affirmative action can be problematic in the sense that when these students reach campus, there is no place for them.
Yeah, it's like, okay, they have clubs, they have other people that they could reach out to, but it's more like once we get you in, you're on your own. You got to figure out by yourself. And I also think it's being problematic when it comes to society, because now you're having a lot of white Americans saying that the only reason this person got into this school was because of this reason.
Especially private institutions, these Ivy League schools, certain types of people attend these schools. If you don't necessarily fit their standards, then once again you can be ostracized from that group. My name is Zakia, and I'm pro-college. Not going to college is a privilege depending on who you are and who you know. I feel like colleges support minorities depending on where you are. For me personally, I'm from Baltimore. There were opportunities for minorities. Of course, it's a majority minority city. If I was in another state that was maybe more conservative or predominantly white, I do feel like I would not have had as many opportunities.
Meritocracy can't exist in the same place where you have nepotism and legacies and all of that. But there's always some sort of an action involved in getting people into universities. I personally know someone who attended classes at a certain Ivy League university with a future president. And he was a terrible student, but of course he got in because he was legacy and his family donated a building. So, and that's how you become president. That's America. Affirmative action is good to give people an opportunity who wouldn't otherwise have it.
I think the intention is good, and you can't speak to intention when the system looks the way it does.
We also have to factor in the aspect of finances and money and schools making money. And when we're talking about intention, yes, there might be one professor that's like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. But that doesn't speak for the entire university. That doesn't speak for the board. Is the intention to give us minorities an opportunity, or is the intention to not hear complaints?
To boost their numbers, boost their diversity levels.
Well, I actually think about it differently. I think affirmative action, definitely works against nepotism, and I feel like if it were no affirmative action, a lot of black students wouldn't be able to go to PWIs. And so I agree that, once you get there, there is a difficulty being a student of color on a predominantly white institution. With that position, it also was the other side that would say that same thing. They would say, we won't let you in because you won't be a good fit here, because you won't fit the culture. And that's the way that they would use to bar people from being able to go. And so, I won't say like it's better for them to turn us away because they don't have the resources. Like, let me get there and let me figure that out for myself versus you telling me that I won't be a good fit there. And that's what affirmative action allows. And I also will say, like, white women benefit from affirmative action more than any other minority group. It's not necessarily about, students of color specifically being allowed on campus. It's about, minorities being allowed.
A degree doesn't qualify you for most jobs.
So a degree doesn't qualify you for most jobs. I would, at least in my field, in the field of IT, I would definitely agree with that statement, because at least working in IT for me, just because you have a degree does not mean you will get a job, like 100%. So when it comes to that, I can't really speak to other fields, but at least in my field, it is the case. That's really all I can say. Speaking from personal experiences, I thought when I get my bachelor's degree, like when I got my bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and information assurance, I thought, oh, I'll be able to get any cybersecurity job I want. That was just not the case. I did not get any sort of cybersecurity jobs. I'm still looking for jobs that I can take. And then I obviously, right after my getting my bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, then I went on to get my MBA in information technology. And I thought, oh, once I have a master's degree, like an MBA, I'll easily get, a job, obviously. But that didn't happen either. So again, just because you have a degree, it really depends on the field, though, doesn't mean you qualify for most jobs in that field.
Jobs.
I think where we're seeing the world currently go in terms of the job market is a lot of employers are hiring for experience. They're hiring to see, do you know what you're talking about? And that's where I think internships really come into play. And that's why a lot of college students are going for internships, is they need to go out there and get that experience, so that way employers want to hire them. No employer is going to turn you down if you're like, hey, I have all of this experience, or hey, I know how to do exactly what you're hiring for, but oh, I didn't go to college for 4 years.
Having that listed as a qualification and a requirement kind of is like a gatekeeping thing more so than who's going to perform the best on the job. I'm Michelle, and I'm anti-college. I became anti-college when I graduated high school valedictorian, and I realized that continuing on with college would be a death sentence. My godmother actually gave me a book called The Education of Millionaires, and she hadn't read the book in advance, so she kind of thought it was going to encourage me to invest in college. But what the book actually did was explain the stories of a lot of people who became millionaires without a formal education.
It's actually true. I believe I know about that book. I don't know if I've actually read the full book, but I definitely have heard the book, and I do know about it. But yeah, the majority of billionaires or millionaires today are people who don't go to college. And the reason is that I've explained this when I've talked about college before on the show, is that college provides stability, not wealth. So, like, when you go to college, you get a degree, you get out of college, you get your job, you'll have stability for the next, 40 years of your working life. But does that necessarily connect with wealth? I don't know. I mean, depending on what job you obviously work in and stuff like that. But overall, I don't think it connects with wealth. And, something that, I think a lot of people more need to realize is that in order to be like rich or wealthy or whatever, is that you need to think outside the box, and you can't just work in an office for 40 years and be a millionaire. It's really not how that works. How it takes being a millionaire is taking risks, taking investments, creating your own business, creating an online business, whatever that might be, being a, high quality like day trader or something like that. It's not working in an office working with spreadsheets all day. It's not that. Like, maybe there are certain corporate jobs that you could be a millionaire in, for instance, if you're like a CFO or something like that. But overall, that's just not the case for the majority of like college degree and jobs after it.
Most companies don't take the time to like read that resume. They feed it through a machine. If you talk the talk and know certain people to jimmy your way in there, you don't really need the qualifications to do the job. People who have the qualifications don't get the job.
I've been job hunting over the last couple months. I started like a spreadsheet where I was putting how many of them are asking for X amount of years of experience. Almost all of them were college degree needed. I still even got like maybe 3 or 4 for every 40 that I applied to.
I'm originally from Miami, and I used to work for the county, and I used to work for social events. And now that I've moved here, it's really hard for me to transition towards the same field, because I tell people, hey, look, I used to run football tournaments. I used to host food drives. But because I don't have a degree in marketing or in event coordination, people, like you said, when I put on Indeed, they say, hey, you need a degree to get in. But because I don't have that degree, I'm not even allowed in the door. My name is Kenny, and I'm pro-college. Going to college is really important to me because I've had a long line of family members who have been educators. My mom, who passed away from cancer, was a teacher. And when she came to this country, the only dream that she had for me was to go to college. In the early stages of me going to school, it felt like a very hard burden to carry. The fact that I don't know what I want to do when I go to school, but I just have to do it because it's somebody else's wishes. But eventually, when I started growing up and realizing that I have my own reasons for going to college, and I, on top of that as well, can fulfill my mom's dream, was something that really kind of pushed me towards wanting to continue my education and going to school.
All student loan debt should be forgiven.
All right, so I'm going to be skipping this section of the video, basically, obviously to be a better reactor and cut out sections of the video. But also because, like, I've already said my take on this particular topic, but I will mention it again. Basically, when it comes to student loan debt, is that whenever someone actually takes out a loan and goes to college, if they complete that degree and are working in that field and paying their taxes and being like, a productive citizen, productive member of society, yeah, I think that that's when the conversation can happen of their student loan being forgiven. But when it comes to someone who took out a loan, they went to college maybe for a couple of semesters, they didn't even complete like half of their degree or whatever, they're not working in their field, then that's when the conversation gets really hard. Like, really, should their debt be forgiven? I don't know, because at least if you're a person who took out a loan, went to college, worked in your field, paying your taxes, being a productive member of society, at least you're doing all the necessary things. So that's my take on this particular topic. I will skip this topic though, to be a better reactor. But yeah, let's, I guess the next topic is college campuses are radicalizing young people. So let's see.
College, yet I got a better return on my schooling than he did. And he still has to pay the same amount that I was having to pay. If someone's unsure of their career path, is it worth them going hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt when they don't know what they're going to do with their life?
College campus.
Okay, college campuses are radicalizing young people. I would say, I guess I would kind of say yes, because if you put a lot of young people in a particular place, or any group of people in a particular place, then they could become radicalized from each other, like kind of a groupthink mentality. And obviously, most people on college campuses are aged like 18 to 24. They're very young people. And obviously, they could have this sort of groupthink mentality and they could all believe the same way. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the statement I would agree with, because most college campuses are pretty far left-leaning from what I see. And, I don't know if I would consider it radicalized, but would I consider it like groupthink mentality? Yeah. So let's see what they say.
Are radicalizing young people.
I hesitated at first because I was interpreting that as the universities influencing people, but I don't think that's the case. I think people who might have certain beliefs are going to college and just spreading it to their peers. So in that regard, I would say college campuses are contributing to that.
When you see a headline and you see that a college is pursuing this or it's agreeing with this, I feel like it has a lot more damage towards the story, as if the school is promoting this type of behavior. And I feel like because they notice that a lot of people are getting a lot of attention for those specific schools, it's like, okay, let's give them more incentive to do it, because it's helping our name get out there.
If you're not, in these spaces where you're hearing a lot of arguments from every side, it's easy to be like, well, that doesn't apply to me, so why would I care? I think for me, at least, being in a college environment, I was forced to see these things and more exposed than I would have been if I hadn't gone.
When I heard the word radical, I paused it for a second, because I think it has a negative connotation just in the media. And so I feel like when you hear people say radical anything, you're like, okay, that sounds like something bad. I feel like it's really the education. They're learning more about the society and about the history of the government in America. And so that does sometimes make you angry and makes you want to speak out and, become an activist for a certain topic or position.
In my mind, though, it's no different than what algorithms are perpetuating on social media right now. If you're on Twitter, you're going to be following people that are within your space, and you're going to be seeing that content. And I think that's actually playing more of a role in radicalizing and doing more in the political space than what we're actually seeing at college campuses.
Me personally, I grew up in a conservative Christian household. Growing up in those environments, I feel like radicalization, it really starts at home. It starts with what your parents tell you about people. I think that when we get to college, we're in more of a free space to voice these opinions. And even on social media, there's also a level of anonymity, so people feel more comfortable sharing certain viewpoints. I feel like these things start at home, and they're just pushed more to the forefront once you get a little older.
Colleges.
Okay, so I will be skipping this topic as well. Colleges prioritize making money over providing quality education. So at least in the United States, when we talk about colleges, they are businesses. They are for-profit businesses making money. That's their main goal. So yeah, obviously their objective is so you give them money and they provide education for you. But their main goal is making money. They are businesses at the end of the day. I hate to say that, but that just seems to be the case with colleges. Obviously, if you are a business, your main goal in a capitalistic system is going to be making money. So that just seems to be the case. Anyways, the next topic is the college acceptance system is rigged. Let's see what they say.
I grew up in a single-parent household raised by my mom. And so I think that just the ability to go to college and earn a degree set me up for higher paying jobs and the ability to pay my mom's bill as well as be a better person in my community.
Okay, so the college acceptance system is rigged. I would say yes, because obviously if you meet certain criteria that aren't actually on the paper to accept, you will get accepted. So like, for instance, even if you don't meet the GPA requirements, you could have a very rich father who makes a quote unquote donation to the college, and then you would get accepted. So there's obviously all of these workarounds for the acceptance system. So for instance, if you're not meeting the requirements, you could do something to obviously, meet the requirements, as in donations or something like that. But if you do meet the requirements, like for instance, like when I talked about me being in those engineering classes and then, meeting the criteria for the scholarship and me not getting it, people below me in the class getting it, that was one thing that really did piss me off. But obviously that just seems to be the case with college acceptance, because at the end of the day, they are trying to meet criteria as in numbers, but they are trying to make money too. So they can kind of weave around the acceptance system of whatever criteria they put forward.
College acceptance system is rigged.
So I went to one of these events that the school that I was really strong about, just to learn more about the admission process. And my mom ran into one of these acquaintances she met from back in the day, and he had put all of his children through the school. And one of the things he told us was that the school made it super competitive to get in so that their acceptance rate looks like, 8%. But for transfers, it's much higher. That's the way into, I would argue, most of these schools if you don't have the proper grades, or maybe you can't afford it that year. There's back doors, and I'm just hearing that, I'm assuming there are more back doors.
My dream college when I was in high school was I really wanted to go to Georgia Tech. I started my college admissions process in West Virginia, and going and visiting the college counselor on Georgia Tech's campus, they were like, this is what you need to do, these are what you need to hit, this is how many APs you need to have. My junior year, my parents moved us to Tennessee, and I ended up applying to Georgia Tech from Tennessee, and I got denied. And I was heartbroken because I had met all of the stats that she had told me to meet. I ended up calling my admissions counselor at Georgia Tech because I developed a relationship with her, and I remember crying with her in the car and just being like, what happened? And she straight up told me that if you would have applied from West Virginia from your school, you would have gotten in. My name's Mehek, and I'm anti-college. When I first entered college, I thought that you had to have a college degree to be successful and to start your own business. And I met a bunch of people that had dropped out of college that were between the ages of 18 and 23. That was eye-opening to me because there were people that had raised millions of dollars to start their own companies, and they didn't have that college background. My mom has her master's, my dad is a doctor. So for me to turn around and say, hey, I actually don't even think I need 4 years of college, I think I can actually just go out and do things on my own, it was a big cultural shock for them.
I think about college as what we said in terms of being a business. And I feel like all businesses are rigged to make as much money as they possibly can. The institute makes more money when students are out of state and paying out of state tuition. Knowing what we know about college acceptance, what would you all want to see? There's no way that every person that wants to go to a particular college can go. So it's they have to find some way to weed people out.
I think there needs to be more transparency overall with universities. Students really need to be aware of what they're going to college to do, who they are looking to learn from, I think will be beneficial. Can they learn from them once they get there?
Yeah, I think transparency is key when we talk about the college acceptance, because it seems like, you can meet all the requirements for a college, but they still don't accept you. And that's kind of what happened to me with a scholarship trying to get into college, is that I met every single requirement, but I didn't get it. And that just seems to be the case with college, is that sometimes if you don't meet the requirements, you could do something to weave your way in. And just because you do meet the requirements, they would be they would find a way to be actually, we don't want to accept you, or we can't accept you because of this kind of reason we just made up on the spot.
I'm Kyle, and I'm anti-college. If I could do it all over again, I would choose not to go to college, because there have been several benchmarks that I can think of where I've progressed creatively that have happened outside of the classroom in terms of experience, or things that I have learned from people working in the industry, or lessons that I have discovered about myself just from sitting doing the craft that I want to do, that more or less was not taught in the classes that I thought I would be taught.
Man, that's interesting. I was sitting here thinking about, for the past 30 seconds once he said that, was if he could do it all again, would he go back to college? And I guess for me, I would probably say yes, because I think college taught me a lot about myself, about how much I work, how actually like productive I am when I need to be. Because when I was productive in college, I was working every single day, every single night on writing essays, studying for tests, doing tests, getting certifications done. I was really, really good. And that taught me a lot about myself. I think that's what college taught me. For the information wise, if I really wanted to learn it, I could learn it all online. Like literally, if you want to learn something, you could find information online. It's not, you know, it's not bookkeep behind like colleges or whatever. It's not that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. As for like my job and the position I am, obviously I kind of need college to stay in that. So that's obviously important. But yeah, I think it was a good decision for me to go to college overall. I mean, I have 3 degrees. I'm 22, so obviously I'm still young, and overall it will benefit me. If I want to keep working in the corporate environment, obviously that's not my long-term goal. I don't want to keep working in the corporate environment. I honestly hate it. I honestly want to be doing more sort of content creation and more focusing on my YouTube channel and stuff, but I'll have to wait and see. Anyways, for the final prompt here, we should stop killing. We should stop telling kids that they should all go to college. Definitely agree with this, because not everything that people want to do is in a college classroom or in a degree. So obviously, there are many things that cannot be taught in college, or many things that do not need a college degree that people can do. And honestly, at least when it comes to my recommendations for people to go to college, unless you absolutely need a college degree in your field, then that's when you should go. And obviously, having the necessary funds and being able to do it is really important too. But for people actually going to college, for everyone across the board, no, I definitely don't agree with that.
We should stop telling kids that they should all go to college.
Yeah, I think some kids, if they are really, really excelling in the school, then yeah, that you want to encourage that one. But you'll always have that kid that just has no idea what they want to do, and that person shouldn't be pressured to go. Shouldn't even be encouraged to go. They need to just figure out something.
Or if their skills are not conducive to
exactly.
normal degree,
Exactly.
like go to trade school, learn a trade, and you'll make money.
I think that we need to switch away from telling every single kid that you need to go to school, more like, hey, look, if you don't want to go to school, here are some other options.
Yeah, definitely like more career focused, more profession focused. Like especially in like some of our cases when we're expected to go to college and people don't care like what degree you have. That's a little bit of a red flag, because you really need to be intentional about the choices you make.
College is no longer an indicator of future success. With the internet, with just all of this access to knowledge, you can create your own future outside of college. And I think it's really good for helping you move into career paths where like doctor, lawyer, where like you do need a higher education. I think other than that, I think it's a lot cheaper, and it makes a lot more sense for people to find a trade school or to go to their local community college and just get the skills that they need to, so that way they can start working.
I was going to say, I definitely don't think that college is for everyone, but I think that most of the time when we hear conversations of people saying you should go to college, it's usually from people who did not go to college. It's like generic advice in terms of like, you should do something with your life. That's really what they're trying to tell you, and they just use college because I do think it is still an indicator of success. Like, I know you said it's not, statistically, you are more likely to make like $1 million more than an average high school graduate.
That's a wrap on the group discussion.
Well, that was the episode. Obviously, it will be linked down in the description. For the final point there that Casey made, I think that was his name, is that you make over $1 million more a year if you did go to college versus you didn't. That is statistically true, and that's actually statistics I used when I talked about college in I think it was my first episode of AiA actually. But when referring to that, we don't think about like how that's changing over time, because when I think of the most successful people my age right now are people who didn't go to college but are like famous online. So like famous TikTok stars, famous YouTube stars, famous like Twitch streamers, whatever. These are people who made it another way. And obviously with like crypto being more of a thing, and obviously online businesses being more of a thing, I think that gap of wealth versus people who did go to college versus people who didn't go to college is going to narrow over time, and one could actually overtake the other. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see for that. Anyways, though, hope you enjoyed the episode. And until next time, see ya.